I've had this on the list of shit I wanted to cover for a long time because it is uniquely fucking weird, and especially in the genre, and especially considering the performer we're talking about here. It is the third album in a triple album by Frank Sinatra. So Frank Sinatra in 1979 finds himself, lives in Los Angeles, hasn't put out a record in 5 years because he's basically tells somebody, one of his friends on the phone, he's just like, nobody wants to write for me and I don't want to sing for them. I'm fucking done with this, and he was just feeling low, feeling, kind of a little bit of a lack of confidence, playing Vegas shows, but almost on rote, and that is when he gets a phone call from a collaborator of his, Gordon Jenkins. Gordon Jenkins is an arranger. He's credited with creating what they call the pop opera, which is where basically he would take a bunch of existing songs and then string them together, sort of like in a musical.
Yeah, Mamma Mia.
Yeah, exactly. Bingo. Exactly. Yeah. So what Mamma Mia is, this guy's sort of credited with creating that from the sort of Tin Pan Alley era, the Brill Building era. And he'd been wanting for years to do a pop opera about the life of Frank Sinatra and to have Frank sing his own story. And so it's got...
What a concept.
It's fucking... And so it's just these like... it's just these things of like he'd be singing one of his songs and then they'd have an arranger come in and he'd be like, talking about himself, talking about his childhood, and then he'd have singers in the background, sort of like a Greek chorus reinforcing whatever he was talking about.
Whoa.
It's so fucking weird. And he'd pitched this to him before, and just this is the guy who arranged It Was a Very Good Year, Stormy Weather, like some of Frank's biggest hits from his heyday were arranged by this guy. And then by the 70s he's just gone off the rails and is just composing all these strange pop operas and stuff like that. And he calls Frank and is like, now's the time.
We gotta do it.
Let's do this shit.
And it makes sense because that was around the time in which like Bad Out of Hell came out, and that was kind of...
Oh, I'm going to talk about what was up at the Grammys, because this was the height of yacht rock, actually. This is we're talking 1979 is when this record is recorded. So the full album is called Trilogy, Past, Present, Future.
Okay, so that you are just the last part of that, because I saw it. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, and so it's it was recorded in December of 1979, and it's 3 records. There's Past. The Past record is kind of a lot of standards, things that he'd already done. It's basically like a reworked version of some of his earlier stuff. Mm-hmm. The Present record has stuff like Love Me Tender, Something, MacArthur Park, Billy Joel's Just the Way You Are. It's sort of Frank's take on like the new stuff, but there's not really any like thread that goes through either of those. It's just literally Frank was like, all right, these are the songs I actually like. These are the post Elvis rock songs that I don't fucking hate, because he famously hated everything the Beatles ever did except for the song Something by George Harrison.
It's kind of
he did that one.
It's funny that he does MacArthur Park, because that is a notoriously horrible song.
Oh yeah.
Right.
That
And
Donna
Park.
Summer,
And Park, yeah, and a dangerous, horrible part.
that is only good because Donna Summer's amazing.
Someone left the cake out in the rain.
Yeah.
Cake out in the rain.
Yeah.
And it's still true today. You go out to MacArthur Park, it's fucked up cakes everywhere.
Yeah, that's right.
Just
yeah.
sheet cakes.
Like garbage in
and
general.
yeah, garbage, needles. But what I really wanted to focus on is the third disc, which is called Future. So the whole thing written and arranged by Gordon Jenkins. And so like I said, Frank hadn't made a studio record in 5 years, and Jenkins sent him this arrangement. But now he's taken what he started off with, like in the 50s and 60s of Frank's life, and expanded it out literally to the universe.
Ooh.
And it's all about Frank assessing his entire life and career while also visiting all of the planets in the solar system. And what makes this whole...
Hey, Martians, I used to be a singer.
I cannot wait for you guys to hear this. Like, it's so goddamn bizarre. Just in the canon of Frank Sinatra, there's nothing like this. And my grandmother was a big Frank Sinatra fan, and I remember she had this record because the big song on this record is New York, New York. And that's on the Present album. So this record it actually was the quickest triple album to reach gold status of all time. So it beat out Sandinista that same year.
Wait, is this his first recording of New York, New York?
It was. So prior to 1979, New York was mostly known as a Liza Minnelli song. But then when this one comes out, that's when Frank kind of like it became a Frank song. That was his last like real big, radio hit, I guess. And that was on the Present record, but the other two records are just there. So if you look at the numbers, it means that a lot of people bought Trilogy and probably jammed out to the Present one because it had this single. Were probably, if they were Sinatra fans already, would enjoy the Past because
right?
it's all of his old
stuff.
standards.
Yeah.
And then there's just this third record that's butt fucking insane. And I have a feeling most people didn't ever listen to it. I remember my grandmother playing this record, and she would listen to all three, and she would put on Future, and I remember as a kid sitting there and listening to it, and it's just Frank Sinatra just being like, Uranus is heaven, and he's talking about like the planets. I'm about to play you some of this shit, and it will blow your fucking mind. But just to tell you about the recording a little bit, because I think it's crazy. He spent 2 weeks, full weeks rehearsing this thing before they ever recorded anything. They did it live at the Shrine Auditorium in LA.
Oh my gosh.
Because they had over 100 musicians and there were just no studio big enough for this. So they just mic'd up the Shrine Auditorium. And if you don't live in LA and you don't know, the Shrine Auditorium is not only, it was the home of the Academy Awards for many years, it's also the home court of the USC, or was the home court of the USC basketball team. So this is a huge building. He had 50 singers. He had an entire string section. He had like 4 bassoons and then 1 guitar player, apparently. And
Sounds right for a concept album.
so it's just this massive thing, and they did it live. And the thing with the Shrine is it's so damn echoey because it's a fucking basketball
Right.
court.
It's a big cement.
That
room.
if somebody, they talked about a lot of times, like an entire take would be fucked up because someone's shoes squeaked and it would bounce around the room and get caught up in all the mics, so they couldn't isolate it out because it was so echoey in there. And they did this shit live with very minimal overdubs. So it's an impressive thing to be the most narcissistic, bloated thing ever.
Everything you're saying about this makes me want to like it.
Oh yeah. It's not that
Truly.
it's not that it's bad. It's that it's unique in the man's canon, and it's also just so it's so crazy.
It's rare to have
Yeah.
4 bassoons because double reeds are notoriously difficult to tune to one another. I want to say a quick thing about New York, New York, as you queue up.
Yeah.
In my experience, so I come from Dallas, Texas, like most people, and our shitty all ages dance club was called Monopoly, and it had everything. It had ex dealers, it had poppers, it had an Arby's in the parking lot where we would go afterwards, and there.
You're describing heaven.
Yeah, every all ages dance club is like a fucking like nightmare.
Yeah.
It's just a place for old dudes to go try to pick up on.
15-year-olds who
Yeah.
believe that they're mature. Yeah, like no, you're not mature. He's a pedophile.
No, he's eating dinner at Arby's.
And
And he's using poppers to pass the Arby's.
yeah, big hits at the time. You'd hear a lot of Front 242. You'd hear a lot of Information Society. Anyway, at midnight, everything's done. All the lights come up. They herd all the sweaty children out the door by turning the lights up and playing New York, New York. Just goth kids running out into the street. So that is all, like when I hear New York, New York, that is always my association. I'm like, fuck, Monopoly is closed. We got to get out of here. We got to go get some horsey sauce.
Yeah, imagine the guy that's managing that Arby's when the first beats of New
God.
York, New
He's
York
like,
comes
oh,
on. It's like, it's the rush.
My association with Frank Sinatra is just my grandmother was born in Staten Island and she idolized Frank Sinatra her entire life. So a lot of it is like just associated with my childhood. Like I'm very familiar with all of Frank's shit, but not because I listened to it actively. It was just background
Always
music
there.
at my grandmother's house. And really, I'm only gonna I think there's 6 songs on this record. I'm only talking about the first song and the last song because the middle 4 are kind of, they're just sort of whatever. The first song and the last song are real crazy because they're each 10 minutes long and they're butt fucking insane. So this is the beginning of the first track, which is called "What Time Does the Next Miracle Leave?" You can hear the band tuning up, and there is a.
My name is Francis Albert. And I sing love songs. Mostly after dark. Mostly in saloons. I've had some
Imagine
very good years.
the ego boost if you just had a chorus going on. His name is
50.
Rivers Langley.
Oh, I want this. 50 fucking singers. and a lot of them take solos throughout this whole thing, and they're having conversations about different shit. So as any 10-minute long song does at oh yeah, so he kind of goes on and he's talking about how he's sitting here, he's in his 40s, 46 years went by real fast and all that stuff. He's trying to like look back on what is going to be his legacy, and as it turns out, his legacy is that he's gonna go into a rocket ship and go into outer space, and so there is like any good concept record should have, there is in fact a countdown.
Oh, good.
3, 2, 1.
There he goes. Frank's in space, and he's going to visit the planets in a very weird order. He doesn't go in order. He goes literally at one point from Pluto to Mercury.
Do you think it's because he did it his way?
Exactly. Well, he makes reference to that in this song. Actually, that's the last part of this album.
You never have to listen to this record then.
But yeah, no. Like I said, he visits all the planets, including Pluto, which hadn't been demoted at that time.
Right.
But the two I really wanted to focus on are Pluto, which he kind of describes. Well, I'll let Frank speak for himself on this.
Next stop, Pluto.
Where the devil dwells.
So,
Pluto is a rotten place, an evil, misbegotten place. It's Hades. Filled with graduates of the pen, a sordid flock of criminal men and ladies.
Ladies! It's filled with graduates of the pen, criminals, and ladies. That's what.
Oh, it's Australia.
Yeah.
You can bet
Yeah.
your
So Frank Sinatra's idea of hell is scholars, criminals, and ladies.
Isn't Pluto... That's from the Greek, though. Like, Pluto's...
Yeah. That's what he's talking
He's
about.
the devil.
Yeah. So that's the Pluto section, and then yeah.
I think if any of the planets are going to have all the bad guys, it's probably going to be bigger than Pluto.
Yeah.
is it bad that sonically I like everything I've heard from this?
Yeah,
great.
no,
Or-
it's not.
It's great. It's high end.
And like I said, I am. You have to think the time period. This is 1979 that we're talking about here. Just to give you an idea of what was going on as far as the Grammys go, this was nominated for 6 Grammys, mostly because of New York, and lost out in almost every category to either Christopher Cross or Kenny Loggins. So that's what the fuck was happening at this time period. And I would say
I could just imagine Sinatra being so pissed off when Christopher Cross, the most unassuming looking chubby little guy,
yeah,
comes up
there he is. We got him on the wall there.
Yeah, walks up there and takes his glory away from him.
Yeah.
That's why Christopher Cross never recorded another album, really.
He's like, well, I've already bested Sinatra.
Well, he did,
I-
yeah.
Blackballed by old Frankie.
Oh, Frank did some blackballing. I'm going to talk about it in a second, but this is my favorite section of this song, and then we're going to hear the last song. This is the section all about it's about Uranus, but he decides to say it a different way.
And then to Uranus. Uranus is heaven.
Uranus is heaven. Yes. There's the solo lady. I should have looked her name up, but I didn't. So she asks him, Frank,
Is it really heaven?
how will you know if it's really heaven?
I will know.
Here's
Okay,
the,
now
here's the
it's the
Italian.
waltz.
Here's how it.
They meet me at the station with a cheese and tomato.
Pizza. Francis, how will you know if it's heaven? If they meet me at the station with a cheese and tomato pizza, and
I didn't know there
say
was
what you want about Frank, but I agree.
Yeah, I didn't know that they had a San Gennaro fest on Uranus.
They got a Sbarro.
It's at the station.
It's at the station. Yeah. So that is What Time Does the Next Miracle Leave? Believe it or not, this record kind of hard to find on Spotify. It's not on fucking
It's
Spotify.
not on Spotify. I didn't think it existed.
Yeah, why it sounds like I'm making this up. Like
Yeah.
when I tell people about this record,
I
and
was worried your brain was broken.
the last one I wanted to talk about on the record is if you thought that was insane, this one might top it. This last song is called Finale, Before the Music Ends. And the thing about this record is that Jenkins, the guy who wrote and arranged the whole thing, he was struggling with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. So a lot of this is like Frank looking back on his life, but really it's sort of like this guy's final statement. And this song, whereas the other one was Frank visiting all the planets, this is Frank flying around the earth and visiting his earthly homes. So he's going to Hoboken, New Jersey, where he started. My favorite part is he's like, I'm going to storm Vegas one more time. And he's like hitting the craps tables. It's fucking fantastic.
He's just taking a rocket ship around the U.S.
Yeah. He starts off in outer space and then comes back to Hoboken, New Jersey.
Well, where are you going to get a cheese pizza?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's how you'll know it's heaven.
Before the music ends, I must go to Hoboken.
No one's ever said that. I must go to Hoboken.
I must return.
No,
to
actually,
Hoboken.
I digress. I did say that one time because I ran out of cigarettes when I lived in New York, and I needed to go to Hoboken to get
cheap
Get the
ones.
cheap cigarettes.
the cheaper cigarettes.
Here's the Vegas part.
I'd like to make one more charge at Vegas.
True gambling addict.
Imagine seeing this live.
I looked this up. He did not perform this. He did not perform this shit live ever. Because when this came out, people rightly were like, "What the fuck am I
is
listening to? This is butt fuck. This is crazy."
Yeah, I'd love to see a review from this time period.
So get this. All right. So there's a guy. He's still around today. If you live in New York, he's on WNYC on Sunday nights, and he does a Sinatra show. He is sort of like the preeminent Sinatra guy. It's a guy named Jonathan Schultz. At the time, was working at a radio station called WNEW, which was an AM and had an AM show.
Sure.
And when it came out, he described Future as a narcissistic and shocking embarrassment. This is Sinatra's number one fan. Like the guy who reveres Frank above, forsaking all others. Frank Sinatra's number one guy said that about it. And this is the best part. Frank heard about this and called his boss and got him fired. Because you don't fuck, even in 79, you don't fuck with
You
Frank
don't fuck.
Sinatra.
We don't fuck with.
He's
Frank.
lucky that's the worst that happened.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's good that
he
he's
got
not wearing...
He still got out with his neck intact.
Yeah, he's not wearing cement shoes at the bottom of the East River.
He got Kenny Loggins' legs broken for taking his best song Grammy.
Your mama don't dance, your daddy don't rock and roll, and you don't walk. Yeah. You want to hear how the record ends? The
course.
last little musical swell.
Can't wait.
It
Better be a reggae
Oh
breakdown.
no!
I'll be singing. As I leave.
I'll be singing as I leave. Like he's fucking Superman, going out, flying around the earth and into the sun.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
Yeah, that shit. Yeah, it ends with 50 people going Sinatra. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I can't imagine
So-
Mia Farrow having to deal with him after that concert.
Oh yeah. Well, this was
Way after.
well, yes and no. It was way after officially, but it was right around the time old Ronan. Anyway, allegedly. Yeah.
So,
but yeah, that's Frank Sinatra's Future.
That's bonkers.
I'll put a link to that. There is a playlist on YouTube where you can listen to the whole thing, and there's a song called World War None. That's his peace protest song.
Amazing.
The whole thing is worth a listen all the way through. But those parentheses on it are what time does the next miracle leave and the finale.